Hello, I am Mario 8th and welcome to Super Mario Bros. In Review, the show where I will be reviewing all 18 Super Mario Bros. Platformers and ranking them to find the ultimate Super Mario Bros. Game. You can find all the previous and future videos in the playlist linked in the description, but first, this week we will be visiting Super Mario 3D Land for the Nintendo 3DS. Released across November 2011, Mario 3D Land became the first 3D Mario game for a handheld console. And for that same reason, the word land was included in the title, as an homage to the first handheld Mario game. 3D Land did fairly well, getting mostly high praise and being one of the better selling 3DS games. 3D Land was developed by the same team behind Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2, but managed to release only a year and a half later. This is probably due to a couple of factors. How Galaxy 2 was finished a bit early, and how in general the scope of 3D Land is actually fairly small. I played a lot of Super Mario 3D Land. This was released when I was firmly in high school, no money and barely any new games. I beat the game once, happily played through the game a second time for completion purposes, and then went back for another 100% playthrough right after. I wasn't too popular in high school. Super Mario 3D Land's story is fairly bare bones this time around. One dark and stormy night, all the Tanuki leaves are blown off the Tanuki tree. The next morning, Mario and some toads investigate, learn Bowser has stolen the leaves, is using them to power up his minions, and stole Peach. Mario sets off, beats him, rescues Peach, learns Luigi is captured too, defeats Dry Bowser, and rescues Luigi. The only notable thing is how the postcards throughout the game were the first time Shigehisa Nakawe's wonderful artwork was used in-game, and his Mario style is superb and I would love a 2D game utilizing it as sprites. Sorry if I pronounced his name wrong. But as far as the game goes, I really did enjoy it. During development, the team decided they wanted to almost merge the way 2D Mario games and 3D Mario games are played. 3D games up to this point had some amount of exploration where the 2D games were mostly linear. 3D Land bridged these two concepts, making for a really innovative and fun design ethos. Each level has a starting point where to the right is the level, to the left is a wall or an infinite pit. The course is a series of obstacles of the regular sort, platforming enemies, very rudimentary puzzles, and are usually broken up by a flag halfway through as a midpoint. To beat the level, Mario has to jump onto the main flagpole at the very end, with getting to the very top netting an extra guy as well as being required for completion. And these levels are designed impeccably well. The merger of 2D and 3D resulted in the players no longer having camera control, instead each area of the level places the camera in the optimal position for platforming. As such, the designers were able to do whatever they wanted. Sometimes Mario is doing hard platforming over spinning blocks, others hopping through a cavalcade of enemies. The linear nature allows for anyone to run to the end flagpole without losing sight of the end goal, but to appease the 3D players, the team brought in the star medals from New Super Mario Bros. These medals are usually hidden throughout various points of each level. This is another bonus from the rigid camera. Oftentimes, medals are hidden just off screen, with some sort of path being the only clue they're there. Other times, medals are just out in the open but require going through a more challenging platforming segment than the regular route to get. Not that they're ever truly difficult, but they're a bit harder. The worst are medals that are hidden behind item requirements. If Mario doesn't have the correct power-up to, say, spin the block, then he'll have to come back to the level later. These annoyed me even when I lucked my way into already having the correct power-up. Speaking of power-ups, the item list in this game has been severely reduced for good measure. The Super Mushroom makes its first appearance in a mainline 3D game. I'm sorry, Mario 64 DS. The Fire Flower is back, but almost entirely useless in 3D. The Boomerang Flower has been introduced and lets Mario shoot out a boomerang that hits enemies and grab coins. And most importantly, the Tanuki Leaf is back, except Mario can't fly with it anymore, and only the post-game special leaf allows him to turn into a statue. Also, like in the 2D games, an extra item can be held in reserve and pulled out whenever needed. Really though, unless another item is needed for a star medal, the Tanuki Leaf should be equipped for the whole game. As I've alluded, the game is actually really super easy. Up to a point. It's never hard to avoid Goombas or Bullet Bills, even when they're powered up by Tanuki Leaves. And the newer enemies, like the new series staples, the Bitty Buddies, or my personal faves, the Draglets, don't really do anything new other than being fun to look at. The bosses are similarly rudimentary. Bowser's fight is a cool twist on crossing the bridge to reach the hammer, except now the hammer is a button, and now the level is in 3D. These segments are all fun to do, but not at all challenging. The sub-bosses are Boom Boom, back from Mario Bros. 3, and the newcomer Pom Pom. One spins, the other throws boomerangs, both get got by hopping on them 3 times. If Mario does get hit by a boss or an enemy, his life is now kept track as the same in 2D games. If he has an item, he loses it. If he doesn't, he'll shrink, and if he's small, he'll die. If Mario dies too many times on a single level, he's granted access to the new item, the Invincibility Leaf, which does what the label says. Makes Mario invincible to all enemies and hazards, bottomless pits and lava exempt. Do not grab this item. If Mario ever grabs one, the sparkles will be permanently removed from the final select completion stars. This game is easy enough without it, and those sparkles are worth it. Platforming as a whole is all around easier. I barely found myself jumping into any pits or running headlong into enemies. This is due to a couple of factors. This time around, Mario is really big on the screen. The team started development porting Galaxy 2 levels onto the 3DS and quickly realized he is far too small for this tiny little screen. Thus Mario, the enemies, and the platforms are all much bigger and spaced apart, so nothing comes as too much a surprise. It also feels like this game was almost a test drive for this style of game, and the more innovative and challenging stuff might come later. But by far the main reason why this game is easier is because Mario is easier to control. Moving through each level, in my expert opinion, has never been better. Running, jumping, side somersaults, and wall jumps have never felt as fluid as they do in this game, and I absolutely love it. And the addition of the roll and the roll jump are really good, if a bit underutilized in this game. Running is no longer triggered after running around for a bit, instead being toggled by pressing B like in the 2D games. And since the player doesn't need to control the camera anymore, this allows for much tighter segments where precision of speed is required. My only real complaints are the crouch jump, the triple jump, and the 3DS itself. Mario has to hold crouch a while before being able to spring higher in the air, a la Mario Bros. 2 USA, and having come right off the Galaxy games where I crouch jumped constantly, it kinda broke my brain. And the triple jump is gone. That I didn't mind too much, but rip to a real one, I guess. And the 3DS. I mean, I mostly love it, but having come off the Wii's joystick, and especially the Switch's joystick, the 3DS movement pad didn't feel great. Everything else, though, perfect. Mario's aerial control, his starting and stopping speeds, his jumps all feel good. Maybe the long jump feels a little bit short, but I did get used to it by the end. Mostly. There are 8 worlds in this game, each with a few levels, toad houses that give items, and mystery boxes that reward extra star medals, and either a castle or an airship at the end. Then after beating Bowser the first time, 8 more special worlds are unlocked, each with their own full set of levels and bosses. These levels are all just redesigned and slightly harder versions from those in the normal worlds. Sometimes there are different enemies or hazards, sometimes the obstacles move faster, or there's a time limit, or Cosmic Mario is chasing Mario the whole time. They each have their own star medals, require getting to the top of the flagpole, and start feeling like a bit of a time sink instead of a fun challenge. The completionist criteria is where I start getting really annoyed with 3D Land. It also makes me amazed I did it twice in high school. Like, geez, did I have that little of a life? Yes, because after unlocking Luigi and getting every medal and getting to the top of every flagpole, then I had to go back and beat every level with Luigi too. This is literally just a time sink and annoys me to all heck. I really dislike when Mario games make me play the game multiple times for completion purposes, and I sure hope a future game doesn't make me do it 5 times instead. Either way, 3D Land made me play it twice, and doing so unlocks the final, ultimate level. Much like the Grandmaster Galaxy and Galaxy 2, 3D Land gives us one more level, a true test of skill. Level Special 8-Crown, because it's the crown level within the special world. 8, it's not a great name. Anyway, this level is hard. It excellently gives the most difficult version of all the best obstacles throughout the game, and I had a blast. A lot wound up being muscle memory from the first times I played the game, but I still died a few dozen times, slowly remastering, hopping on Hammer Bros, using a toad for an extra jump, dodging fire sticks, and avoiding a really big Cosmic Mario. In the end, I think it's even harder than Grandmaster Galaxy. I don't like that I had to play through the game twice, but it is such an amazing reward for doing so. Aesthetically, the game is solid. It looks good for being a 3DS game. The art style is what is now basic Mario, with the exception of the aforementioned 2D drawings, which I love with my whole heart. The music is all really good, the main track is especially catchy, but there's only a handful of songs, with a good chunk of them being remastered songs from previous games. And the big twist with this game, which is so pivotal to the game that I neglected to even mention it until the very end, is the fact that this game is playable in literal 3D due to the 3DS's 3D functionality. It's used in a couple places. Well, I had it on for a bit. I think it might have made some of the platforming easier. Also, it makes the postcards have a bit of depth, and that's neat. Otherwise though, mostly a gimmick. A neat gimmick, but a gimmick nonetheless. Super Mario 3D Land is a very good game. A bit on the shorter side, but the short levels were perfectly designed for a handheld console. It's actually really fascinating seeing the transformation from Mario Galaxy 1's somewhat linear but often open levels, to Galaxy 2's much more linear, to 3D Land's entirely linear. There is such a clear defined line from then to now, and I think all of them are very good. Really, it almost comes down to which style I prefer on which day. But I mean, 3D Land is no Galaxy. It's no Galaxy 2. And despite how much I love 3D Land's controls and dislike Mario 64's, 3D Land is no Mario 64. Now, if there's a hypothetical direct sequel to 3D Land that refines the controls even more, then we're talking. But for now, my current ranking for 3D Mario games is 5 Super Mario 3D Land, 4 Super Mario 64, 3 Super Mario Sunshine, 2 Super Mario Galaxy, and 1 Super Mario Galaxy 2. It's a good game, but it's just not comparable to the more fully thought out experiences. And in a couple games we'll find out that it was a great starting point. But for now, we're heading into a double feature that I've almost been dreading. I haven't played either of these games in years, one since it came out and the other when I finally picked it up on a sale on the Wii U. I've only played each of these games once, and it's a real shame they are back to back, because I might tire myself of the formula. Because these next two games finish out the 2D Super Mario Bros. Games, starting with New Super Mario Bros. 2. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, maybe leave a rating or a sub to be notified of more. While you're down there, you can check the description for all of my socials where I'm at Mario8th everywhere. I'm on Twitter, Tumblr, and you can see what games I'm playing on ggapp.io. Also in the description is the playlist that every Mario in Review video will eventually be in. And if you'd like, let me know what your personal Mario ranking is in the comment section. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.